My name is Jonathan Gillum.
And this is the experts.
My name is Jonathan. My name is Jonathan Gillum.
We are back on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And I got it fixed somehow, some way. And let me see if we get any numbers back here. I got to go share everything again on Facebook. So let me make sure it's downloading on Twitter here. We had, I'm going to explain all this. We had technical difficulties because of this new Mac Sierra, High Sierra thing that I downloaded on my computer. Probably should have waited on that, but so we're gonna get to this, and I know it's 8:39 now, but we'll go with it and see who shows up. Let me get this shared out real quick, and then I'm gonna go back over all the goofy stuff that you saw me doing when there was no sound. I didn't realize there was any sound. I was rolling, I could hear the sound in here. I checked my thing before the voice started, but what it was, there was a mic issue between the operating software and the computer for some reason. Things got reset. So let's go to the warning order, and I explained all this to you, as if you would want to know. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. All right, so we'll share together. Make sure you're sharing this show. Let's see how many people we got on Twitter so far. I didn't even know. 74 people. Hey, everybody's coming back. That's good. All right, so between this crazy thing happening, and so make sure you're sharing it and retweeting it. And I don't know what we do on YouTube, folks. Just hang out and love life, I guess. But between this computer thing and my dog that loves me so much, and I love this dear dog as well, but he is blowing it up in here, and he's killing me. This is, listen, this isn't a network news show. I like to bring network quality analysis to the show, but I have to be honest at times. My dog, he's a Jack Russell. He's 17 years old. Rico, he's laying down right here. I'd grab him, but he's asleep right now. I don't want to wake him up. But he loves to lay there and let me know that he is not happy that I'm not paying attention to him, if you know what I mean. And so, yeah, too much information. Okay, so if you have Mac and you're going to eventually download the High Sierra, the new OS operating software, and unfortunately there's been a lot of complaints that it has issues. I don't really know what it's going to do good. I know that you can browse on your computer and it doesn't share on the internet. You can surf, and it doesn't share the information that you get. You know how you look at something on the computer and then you go to Facebook and there's an advertisement for a pill that you've never, ever, ever talked about except for like an hour before with somebody and you looked it up. And now that you're getting advertisements about it. So you can turn all that off. I don't know how to do all this stuff. But so I downloaded this thing. Like I said, like I said before when you couldn't hear me, I didn't get any sleep last night because of the state of affairs in this country. Look, I take it that seriously. And there was, I had this conversation with another buddy of mine, two buddies of mine, Dave Robinson and my good buddy Ralph that calls in here every now and then, and a former Hell's Angel guy, and had his own show for a while. Ralph Randolph, you guys may know who he is. If you don't, look him up. He's a great guy, amazing Marine, 2 Marines. So I called 2 Marines. I was like, I'm having a hard time with all this. And they're like, yeah, so are we. And after talking to him, the thing that really hit home with all these different people that I talked with is that they feel as though they can't do anything to protect their country, and they see it crumbling before their eyes. And that is a very scary thing, folks. That is a very scary thing for people who have, listen, you may serve 5 years, 2 years, or 20 years in the military. But regardless, you raise your right hand, you swear an oath, and then you dedicate yourself to the service of that country. Your oath of office never expires. You're dedicated to defending the country against all enemies, against defending the Constitution and supporting the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And we're being destroyed inside domestically right now, and it's bothering people because, listen, they're not warmongers. We're not people who are looking for the fight. We're people that we want to clean the inner city up. We were talking about this today. We would love to stop gang violence. We would love to get with real civic leaders, parents that are having hard times, that are poor, and do whatever we can to help them and get this relationship built back up between police and the inner city. Also would love to get with police departments and retrain them in community service and some of these ridiculous tactics that they use, and recruiting policies. But nobody wants to listen to anybody else in this day and age of, I know enough to know more than you. And it's a very sad state of affairs, especially when you throw in communism, which people on Twitter are like, this guy's like communism. He's a communism freak, because for like a day and a half, all I've been doing is going off on the NFL because it's all linked to communism, to Marxism. Black Lives Matter was started by Marxists, not to help young people with dark skin. I hate using the terms black and all that stuff. Everybody that watches this show knows that. I think it's the most ridiculous way to put people in a category. But, Black Lives Matter was not made to help black people. Black Lives Matter is a Marxist tool to divide people. Antifa is the same thing. By all means necessary, who the mayor of Berkeley belongs to, is the same thing. Feminism is the same thing. I got to play something for you here in a little bit from the Sean Hannity show on Friday when I hosted. I love when I'm on there. Mediaite is going to end up making me famous because they love to put this stuff out, try to make me look bad, and all it does, they just make my point for me. As Yuri Brezhnev said, any of the isms is a problem. They could be used as, and typically are, a communist subversive tool. So it's difficult for people who love their country to sit back and not do anything. It's very difficult. Can you guys still hear me? Let me know. Can you hear me now? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. I want to make sure you can still hear me. Somebody, anybody. I don't know why I'm not getting anything on Twitter either. Okay, good. You can hear me. Okay. So, I know I'm not alone in this because I've talked to too many people today. Not just veterans. People that work in hospitals and people that work in government. We have this weirdo, folks. Let me pull up this picture real quick. I'm going to send it over to my computer. A West Point grad. I don't know what's going on with the service academies. Let me just pull up these pictures here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. It's a very disturbing, very, very disturbing thing. I might as well send this one over too. That's me getting pictures. Let me pull this one up first. Stand by. Again, I'm doing all this myself. Downloads. Okay, here you go. This is the one that most people have seen. And this is a West Point grad who's now in Ranger School right now, I found out. I can't remember the guy's name. I'll have it here. Let me see if I can see it right here. His name is Spencer Rapone. Spencer Rapone. Evidently, this guy's in Ranger School. I graduated from Ranger School, but this guy is a weirdo. And here's the thing that bothers me even more than the fact that this guy somehow made it into the Army. When West Point put out a press release today explaining their feelings on this, not once. They said that he doesn't fit their values, that they don't stand for the values like this guy has. But not once did they say, we realize that communism is an enemy to the United States. Not once. Does anybody else have a problem with that besides me? Let me see. Let me pull up another one here. Okay, this isn't him, but this is also at West Point. What the heck is this all about? Right? This is a sign of resistance made famous by the Black Panthers, black separatist group, also a Marxist group, used by Black Lives Matter now and all these other Hillary Clinton weirdos. Hillary Clinton's a communist. Don't kid yourself. And this is West Point, folks. Let me show you one more. There's no way that this is the first time that this guy ever did this. That's a Che Guevara shirt. And that appears to be West Point graduation. And this next to what happened at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, and that guy Spencer Rapone, that's his name. But at John Jay College last week, we talked about how they had the one Antifa professor there. Everybody knew that he was with Antifa, and John Jay is going to employ this guy who is Antifa is a terrorist group, and they're going to employ him. Or Chelsea Manning invited to the Kennedy School at Harvard to be a guest fellow there, and they think that this is how lost these people are in their belief and their ideology. They literally think that we're just okay with this. I don't know about everybody else watching this show, but I'm having an extremely hard time with these issues. With this, a West Point grad. Look, I know I have a heartburn with the academies. Don't get me started on that. I think you should be enlisted way before you ever go to these academies, at least 4 years before you become an officer in the military. I think you should be enlisted for 4 years. Trust me, I speak from experience. I was an officer in the SEAL teams. My life would have been a lot easier had I been enlisted first. So it bothers me. It bothers me so much I could barely sleep last night. The NFL is bad. Dale Earnhardt Jr. What is this guy thinking? Let me. I'm gonna hold on. Give me a second to link this one up here. I made a meme today. Of course, I spelled stuff on it wrong twice, calling somebody stupid. You got to get the spelling right, which I messed up. Of course, I had no sleep, so that's my story. I'm sticking with it. Dale Jr., NASCAR Dale Jr. goes out and writes this. Let me pull it up here where you can see what he wrote, not what I wrote. He writes on Twitter, all Americans are granted rights to peaceful protest. Now, here's the big thing, okay? He's quoting JFK. Those who make peaceful revolution possible will make violent revolution, or excuse me, those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. Now, let's just think about what this moron, and listen, I was a big Dale Jr. fan. Ask anybody. I'm crazy about NASCAR. Of course, look, I wrote a big meme for him. But I'm crazy about NASCAR, and I'm trying to put this somewhere where he can. And there you go. So I'm crazy about NASCAR, right? I love the mechanics and the artistry of these cars, and the skill it takes to drive these things is phenomenal. Phenomenal. I got to drive one. I'll show you a video in a little bit. I got to drive one, and it was scary, folks. It was 130, 140 miles an hour around Dover, Delaware's track, which the turns are about as sharp as an off-ramp on the freeway, doing 140, between 130 and 150 miles an hour we're doing. But I've lost all respect for Dale Jr., Dale Earnhardt Jr., complete disrespect for him. First of all these celebrities, whether they realize it or not, when they're saying that all Americans are granted rights to peacefully protest, okay, I get it, I get that. But what he's not realizing is that the people that are protesting are actually these people. Okay? They're these people. Communists. And people keep saying, oh man, communism is dead. You wouldn't know communism if it bit you. Some dude said that today. I don't have to know communism. Communism is not, I'm not seeking communism. It's seeking us. This is West Point, folks, the United States Military Academy. And they did not do anything. They don't even recognize communism as an enemy to this country. So when Dale Jr. puts this out, and then he quotes this quote from John F. Kennedy, and he's too stupid to realize, that's T-O-O, stupid, T-O. I got that right now. Thank you, Josh. He's too stupid to realize that what John F. Kennedy was talking about when he wrote this quote is that he was talking directly to the communist enemies in Central South America and in the Caribbean, such as the Castros and the other regimes that were in Central South America. And he's saying to them, those who make peaceful revolution impossible. Now, what he's talking about is democratic revolution, freedom, turning these places from communist rule into free democracies. He said, to those who make peaceful revolution impossible, talking about freedom, they will make violent revolution inevitable. Because when you suppress freedom, people will inevitably fight to take it back eventually. That's what he was saying. Right? So, this knucklehead and all these celebrities that are protesting these things, they're either not realizing what they're protesting or they're a part of it, okay? So let's just say that Dale Jr. doesn't realize that Black Lives Matter was founded by 3 Marxist women and is used to divide the entire country. Let's say that he doesn't get that, okay? All right, we'll give him that. We'll give him that. He doesn't get it. All right? Hold on a second here. But the entire country. Let's say that he doesn't. So he doesn't get that. Okay, that's cool. He doesn't get it. But what he's doing is he is furthering the communist cause by going out there and saying, oh, it's okay to protest, when they don't realize this is fake protest. I will lock arms with any of these people in large groups. I'm not going to go into East New York by myself or with a small group of people. We get 10,000 people. Let's go march through East New York with the cops and get rid of the gangs and clean up the sidewalks and make sure that the babies are fed and help people repair walls and stuff that are whatever we need to do. Take up a collection and pay somebody's electricity. I'm all for that. If that's what we got to do, get together, and that's our form of protest by actually doing stuff, I'm down for it. But taking a knee at a specific time, the only time on a regular basis where 50, 60, 70,000 people, citizens of this country, get together and stand for the national anthem. It's the only time on a regular basis that we do this. And they picked that. They didn't pick it by mistake. They didn't pick it because they felt like that was a gut punch that would wake people up. They picked it because they knew, and they did a very good job of it tactically. They picked it because they knew it would inflame tensions, not fix them. Listen, if you have an investigative mind, you look at the past and you see what certain groups did. That's why when somebody bombs something, we go and we look and say, what is there a footprint left? Is there techniques that they use? Certain type of powder? Did they construct it a certain way? Because making bombs, there's many different ways, and however you're taught is probably how you're going to end up making more of them. So we develop characteristics, tactics, techniques, and procedures that they use. It's the same thing with communist subversion. We can see what the techniques are. Yuri Brezhnev told us about it in the 80s. We understand how it works. We saw it all over Central South America and Asia, where communism crept. And that's what you're seeing. But so either Dale Jr. doesn't realize that, or he is one of these globalists that is okay with it, thinking, and he's bought into it, that it's actually not a bad thing. It's actually a way to get to utopia. And so he takes this quote right here from John F. Kennedy, where John F. Kennedy is talking about communist countries that do not allow a peaceful turnover, a peaceful revolution where they become a free democracy, that inevitably the people that are seeking freedom will turn violent until they get their revolution. That's what happens when you give a human a taste of freedom, or any animal for that matter. Dale Jr. turns this around. So if we take it for now, knowing about Black Lives Matter and these groups like Colin Kaepernick, who's a communist, his girlfriend who's a Muslim and a communist, so we look at these people and we say, okay, that's what they're on their knee for. So Dale Jr. saying that all people should be able to peacefully protest, and then he writes below it, those who make peaceful revolution impossible. In other words, if America doesn't bend over backwards and allow communism to come in and take over, well, then they're going to do it violently. And listen, I don't think I'm going out on a stretch coming up with this analogy of this tweet. Am I? Does this sound like I'm going way out of bounds on this? Because I don't think that I am. That to me sounds like a direct threat to the United States. If we don't lay back and allow this revolution of communism to happen peacefully, which there's no such thing as a peaceful communist revolution, if we don't allow that, then they're going to do it by force. That's what I'm reading into this. Why else would you put that up there? So if Dale Jr. next week makes a right off the tall end of the turn and doesn't come back to racing anymore, hey, Dale, you were, in my mind, all right, based on my training and expertise, based on my service and my time in all these different agencies, and having taken an oath to the country, Dale Earnhardt Jr., you are an enemy to the United States. Unless you want to come back and explain this nonsense, as far as I'm concerned, your silence is evidence that I'm right. I know if somebody was accusing me of being a communist, I'd be all over it trying to fix it. And so P. Letterman says he put it up because he didn't know the context of the quote. Hey, listen. You put something like this up at a time like this when veterans and other people that serve this country and good patriotic Americans are seeing the communist creep. We're seeing it, and it's just everywhere. And you put something up like this and you're that stupid. That's like going into on an airplane and standing up and joking around saying you have a bomb. It's not funny, and it could get you killed, especially if I was an air marshal on the plane. I wouldn't have wasted any time on that. So, I was shocked by this, by Dale Jr., but it's a perfect example of why I've been hurting inside with all this stuff happening. So, Yeah, NASCAR is what you're saying here. I can't. It's so small in here, I can't see it. NASCAR is an awesome opening, very patriotic. Absolutely correct. I saw these people, these leftists on TV saying, "Well, you know, speaking of patriotism and the flag, if you turn the flag sideways, that's a sign of disrespect to the flag." People who turn the flag to the side when people are standing above it is no different than having the flag turn this way. If they turn it this way and all the people are standing above it, I mean, technically, it's still side to side. But the reasons for disrespecting the rules and the manuals and all this stuff have to do with handling this thing with respect, with pride. When they have that giant flag on the field and they're waving that thing, there's no better sign of respect for that flag. But as I said yesterday, and I'll say it again, I would rather see all these sports venues. Listen, we know the truth now, okay? They're not all American. You want to see how American they are? Let's just step over here and let me read you this real quick. This comes from the and for all my good friends out there in Texas land that say Texas will never be subverted. Well, I'm sorry to tell you this, folks that live in Texas. Your state has already been subverted. It just hasn't spread its wings fully. This is in the San Antonio Spurs coach calls the U.S. an embarrassment in the world after Trump said his stuff about the NFL. Now, this is NBA, right? One of the NBA's most lauded and longest tenured coaches departed from basketball talk and spoke candidly about his views on activism in athletics. Whenever you hear activism in anything, it's typically going to be communist or Marxist. That's who's doing this. He also talked about white privilege and the presidency. White privilege is another thing that's made up. It's another thing that look, are some people who are white more privileged? Absolutely. Is P. Diddy or that idiot who put that video out the other day trying to make it sound like we all need to be down with each other and stand together? And meanwhile, because we're oppressed, and he's standing in front of like a $20 million home in Jersey, idiot. So whenever you see these people talk about oppression, about white privilege, about all these things, trust me, folks, I don't have a racist bone in my body. I want what's best for this country. I'm not out to try to defile these people because I don't like them. I'm out I'm standing against an enemy here. And I'm trying to do my best based on what I've learned throughout my years of experience to educate you. And this guy, as far as I'm concerned, Greg Popovich. Oh, he's a Russian. See? Always the Russians. Way to go, Popovich. You son of a Popovich. He says, quote, we know where the power is. We know the racism that exists. It's gone beyond that to the point where I'm more worried and confused by the people around the president. He goes on to talk about he's been listening to Bill Maher too much. But then he goes on to say that the United States is an embarrassment to the world. Oh, look, there's audio of this. Hold on a second. Let's just play a little. All right, stand by. Hopefully this won't crash everything. Thank you, Microsoft. Hold on. Got to get through the commercial. Oh, you know what? While we're waiting on this, I don't want to change the mood, man. I'm like killing it with this. All right, so I'm going to wait for the song I was playing for you guys earlier. I practiced this hard and wrote it right before the show. All right, here we go.
I'm more worried about and more confused by the people around our president. These are intelligent people who know exactly what's going on, who were basically very negative about his actions, but now it seems that it's...
Hey, listen, Lando 8, if you're so embarrassed of America, why don't you get the hell out of America? How about that? Look, you need to have pride in your country. And we got a president, and I want you to seriously think about this, or just get off this show. I don't like trolls on here. This president says what he means. He's not a politician. He's not going to lie to you. He's going to say what he feels. Sometimes it's harsh. Sometimes I wish he would not tweet those things. I wish he wouldn't do what he's doing with Kim Jong-un and kind of ramping that stuff up. I don't like that. But listen, this is a guy that succeeds, and if he fails, he figures out another way to come back. He continues operationally to make sound decisions. He hasn't destroyed anything. And the country and the people, the people in other countries that are saying this about America and that about America, they're globalists. They're people that basically rule like dictators. They're the rich George Soros types. And all these pompous, arrogant snobs that live in these other countries that couldn't protect themselves out of a paper bag that the United States gives too much money to, and we have our own soldiers die to save their lives and their countries. So you know what? If you don't like it in the United States and you're embarrassed by it, why don't you go live somewhere else? Like, for instance, France, where you have basically no rights when it comes to protecting yourself. And if you go to the wrong place at the wrong time, let me tell you what happened in Beslan, Mr. Know-It-All that doesn't like America. Let me tell you what happened there. The stories that you didn't hear on the news, okay, that I got from people that I know that are in the government. They went in there and they shot these people in this theater. But they didn't stop there. The press doesn't report what they did next. Systematically went back after the rampage, and the people that were rolling around shot, they gutted them alive, and they cut their guts right out of their stomach and let them lay there gutted. Women, men, I think I even heard about a pregnant woman. That's what you should be embarrassed by. A country whose immigration system is so jacked up that they literally produced a place just right there in Brussels, in Belgium. They can, all the jihadists can go there. It's the biggest jihadist hideaway outside of the Middle East. Go live there. Maybe you won't get gutted, but maybe you will, because their immigration system sucks. Because they pander to this whole globalist movement, and they got rid of their borders, and now they're suffering for it. They can laugh all they want. I'm an American. I'm safe. That's just one example of the things that you don't hear about and that you don't know. And then you go off and you make stupid comments like that, and you make decisions and you say, well, I'm going to take a knee with this guy. Why? Oh, because all the black people are oppressed in the inner city. It's called poverty. All right? It's called poverty, and it's called learned helplessness. Politicians want these people to be dependent on the government handouts because they know they'll get their vote. And when they do that, when people take the handout and they live in poverty, they have no reason to go get a job. That has nothing to do with President Trump. That has everything to do with you and the votes that you make. You want to be ashamed of somebody, be ashamed of yourself if you're a voter and you voted somebody like Nancy Pelosi or Paul Ryan or John McCain or Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and you voted somebody like that in. That's what you should be ashamed of, not the United States of America. If this country falls to communism, then you should be ashamed. And if it falls to communism and you don't give every ounce of your life to fight it, you should be ashamed. Let's listen to what this idiot has to say some more.
Condoned. And, you know, we saw it this weekend with his comments about people that should be fired or people that shouldn't be allowed to do this sort of thing. I wonder what the people think about who voted for him, where their line is, how much they can take, where does the morality and the decency kick in.
Don't lecture me on
countries in
morality and decency, you communist hack. You all should never go see another one of those Spurs games because of that jerk right there. See, those of you who don't know me that well, there's two sides of me. There's the caring, loving American patriot, and then there's the warrior. And when the warrior comes out, which my building manager saw today because he shoved one of my doormen right in front of us, it is not a pretty thing. You don't hurt or push or do or disrespect me or people that I care about. You don't disrespect this country. And it takes everything from me. Listen, I'm not one of these fake Tommy Lahren or Richard Fowler or CNN hosts. I'm the real deal, folks. You want to listen, I can guarantee your ass won't come up to me and say what your Twitter muscles are saying. I can guarantee it. You may be laughing thinking, oh, I got this guy riled up. Oh, I'm riled up, but it ain't because of your ass. I'm riled up because this country's falling to communism. Sometimes I wish it would. I wish it would go ahead and fall while the patriots sat back and allowed it to happen before we take it back so that you could feel the pinch of losing your freedom, you fruitcake. You see me on the sidewalk, feel free to come up to me and say that you think America's an embarrassment. You watch what happens. And I'll be damned if anybody burns a flag in front of me. That was a mistake by the Supreme Court that should never have happened by liberal, political, bought judges. Let's get this Dale Jr. nonsense off the screen. He's gone. I don't even want to hear from Dale Jr. if he's that stupid. And all this National Guard and Navy stuff all over his cars. Riding with, I was showing people the videos of him flying. Well, I don't know if it was the Blue Angels just with F-18s. And I thought, man, what a cool dude. He's a jackass. That's what he is. He does not represent NASCAR as far as I can tell. And if I find out NASCAR is going down this road, listen, I might as well just go find another, I don't know. Maybe I'll get like 10 more dogs. No offense, Rico. Anyway, I can't handle this anymore. It's just this bad, folks. It's just this bad. I'm not a violent person. I've been trained to kill. And if I was on my job and the United States said, that's our enemy, we need to go take that person out, I would do what I had to do in a professional manner, no different than a firefighter going through a house and putting out a fire. That's my target. I'm going to assault that target. We're going to go through that target, and then I'm going to go home. I'm like a bear in the woods, you know. A bear is hungry. You're there. He's going to kill you and eat you. He's not going to go and have to go to a therapist after it happens. That's not what a bear does. It's his instinct. I'm trained that way. But I'm a professional. That's my other job, right? That's my career field. I wish it was still my career field. The person that I am is a professional, good person, loving person. I care about this country. I'm not ashamed of it. What I'm ashamed of is the citizenry in this country and their lazy butts that won't get up and take ownership of their citizenship. That's what I'm ashamed of. But I'm not ashamed because I think the rest of the world thinks something. I could care less what somebody from France or Great Britain or some Muslim mayor of London thinks. I don't care what they think. The proof is in the pudding with those people. What I care about is this country. What I'm ashamed of is the fact that we as a people have gotten lazy to the point where we don't even take care of people when they're... Look, I grew up poor. I didn't get a handout, but it sure would have been great if we had a community that took care of each other a little bit more. But that wasn't the case. I still did fine. And you can too. It's hard to take. It's very, very hard to take. Got to see what else I was going to talk about today. All I can do is laugh. So Ryan Zinke, also a former Navy SEAL, much more illustrious career than I had. He's now the Secretary of the Interior, and says that 30% of the Department of Interior, people that work there, are not loyal to the president and his team. They literally are not loyal at all to the president and his team. I can't say that I find that shocking, but it's disturbing nonetheless. Now, I'm going to go to the B block here in just a second. My mustache is like punching me in the nose. And we're going to talk about Comey and what's happening now. Now, I don't think anything's going to come out of that. We talked about the West Point grad and how they didn't even say that this is communism, just like, or that communism is an enemy, just like John Jay College didn't say that Antifa is enemy, just like Harvard University didn't say that Bradley, a.k.a. Chelsea Manning, isn't a traitor to the country. No, we'll just let him come and talk. I'm not going to listen. Here's a perfect example right here, folks. If you want to know why I feel so strongly about the transgender issue in the military, just take a look at this. Let's see if this comes up here. Mad Pooper spokesman gives bizarre excuse for female jogger defecating in people's yards. Now, we got General Mattis that for some strange reason can't seem to wrap his head around the fact that transgender people have a tremendously high suicide rate and they are medically dependent. Okay? He can't figure that out. And how General Mattis, this mad dog Mattis, this guy that is some kind of warrior monk, how is it that a warrior monk can't make heads or tails of the fact that somebody who's transgender has a mental issue? And how is it that a warrior monk can't figure out that somebody has a high suicide rate, a mental problem, and somebody that is medically dependent is going to be a problem for mission effectiveness? It's going to be a problem with getting along with other troops. It's going to be a problem with morality. How does this warrior monk not realize that? I mean, one of the first things you learn from being an officer in the military, and I was unfortunately was an officer, is that, you take care of your men. Also, if there's a cancer in your platoon, you get rid of it. Get them transferred. Some guys, it's not that they're bad guys, they just don't get along. So you try to get other platoons and put people together and make it work. Now, here's the thing about this Mad Pooper, whose weird spokesman gives bizarre excuse for female jogger defecating in people's yards. Here's that excuse. A man claiming to be the spokesman of a jogger dubbed the Mad Pooper, who reportedly has been defecating on the lawns of Colorado homes, says the woman is struggling after gender reassignment surgery and as she battles a traumatic brain injury. The unidentified man made the comments in a YouTube video that has since been removed. Oh, he also... How do I know this is probably real, this guy? Because if this is a transgender individual and this is true, he added, the jogger's actions are protected under the First Amendment, and the government cannot control when and where she does her business. Idiots. Idiots, man. And you wonder why this country's in the shape that it's in. So, let's go to the A block. I spent enough time being angry here about this, and gosh, I'm trying to loosen myself up a little bit. So I spent all this time writing this song. You all didn't know that I was a musician. I'm going to try it again. Let's see if it's as funny as I did it earlier when there was no sound. And so Dennis Kucinich is going to be, he is the lead into this song with Debbie Wasserman Schultz. So let's see if this works out.
Debbie, Debbie.
My name is Debbie, and I am sad. I want my computer, or I'm gonna get mad. Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Drop in the mic, or a pen, whatever it was. Yeah.
Peace out, Debbie. All right. Not as funny as it was when I was doing it when nobody could hear me. But listen, you get the point. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is a weirdo. I was going to go get Crisco, but I don't have any hair, so it wouldn't do any good anyway. I just have to take a mop and soak it in like olive oil or something and then put it back on my head. That would have completed the whole thing, and I would have had her down perfect. I actually got to interview Dennis Kucinich once. I thought he was a really nice guy. I don't know how I started putting those two together. He's a little guy, but hey, he's got a very beautiful wife who's much taller than him, so I give him the props for that, and he's actually a pretty nice guy. Let's go to the A block. I need sleep. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. Man, by the way, I just want to tell you guys, I want to say thank you to everybody for pre-ordering this book. We rose back up so Amazon's really weird the way this whole thing works. There's like, I don't know, 1,000 books or more that come out every week. New books. They're just publishers putting these books out all the time. The book debuted. It went up all the way to number 5, right behind Hillary Clinton's book. Right around about 2 days after Hillary Clinton's book came out. And so it was at number 5 in the Amazon bestseller list. It was number 1 in 3 categories. I don't know how they picked 2 of those categories, but one of them is violence and society. So right behind, or right in front of The Gift of Fear. It's still in front of The Gift of Fear, which is, I'm no fan of Gavin DeBecker. I had somebody that worked for me before and was treated like crap. So, but his book is kind of renowned, and Oprah put him on the map. And so my book was right in front of his. And then it fell down to 7,000 because over the past couple weeks, like all these books come out. And then last week, because you all and your efforts in spreading the word and telling people this guy's legit, I've had a lot of people coming on the show saying, never heard about you before, but somebody told me about you. And they went out and bought the book. The book went back up to 120, and it's now it was number 1 in one category, number 2 in another category, and I like number 26 in another category. So the book isn't even coming out until December. So I got to thank everybody for the effort they put into spreading the word about this book. It has meant a lot, and I can't thank you all enough for doing that, because the more people find out about this show and about this book, the more they're going to realize they can turn the TV off. There's a place where they can go and get fresh, full amounts of information, not half stories. If I don't know it, or if I don't have a source that can tell me about it, I'll get somebody else on here to talk about it. You know, I was never in the CIA. I do know intelligence work, but I was never in the CIA. If I want that, I'll call Scott Eulinger. Or if I need a doctor, I'll call my buddy Wally Grand or somebody else, you know. So that's why it's called The Experts, because we don't give you half stories. We don't give you a quarter of the truth. We try to give you the whole truth. And if I have to theorize on stuff, which a lot of the stuff we've been talking about with communism has to do with educated assumptions and based on training and expertise, or experience, I like to call it expertise. And so you get a very well-rounded idea of what the truth is or potentially could be based on training, experience, not just opinion. So the more people get this book, the more people, when it comes out December 12th, are going to be empowered by this. and you're going to understand why when you see the book and what it teaches. It teaches people how to target themselves from an attacker's mindset. It teaches you about how attackers think. It teaches you about what an attack is, how to build a target package, and without going too far in the weeds, so you can look at your life and the different sectors of your life from an attacker's point of view. That's what it's all about. So, and then how to defend against that stuff. Okay, so enough about that, but thank you all. I do really appreciate that, and I think we need to do more of that. We need to keep this GoFundMe, which you see right down here at the bottom, the GoFundMe going. Again, if you pay $50, you will get an autographed book when they come out from me. Still trying to figure out how we're going to do that, but I've had several people say they're going to help me with that. So, but you're going to get an autographed book. So that way you help fund this show, and you get a book as well, and it'll be autographed. And then when I become president of the United States someday, you can say, hey, everybody be like, that guy's a jackass. You say, yeah, he's such a jackass. Would you like to buy a book with his autograph in it? Could you imagine me being the president? You know what I'd do if I was the president? I would work. I wouldn't. There's no golfing. I don't play golf. All right. My idea of a vacation is going and sitting down by the water at the lake in Arkansas with my dogs, and just being left alone for a little bit. That's about it. I like to go and have sangria at a couple places here in Manhattan. I would work like crazy if I was president. Work and challenge and try to effectively fix stuff, and not just fix it. I would own the FBI, and I would have them going and looking at all this corruption in government and just going after it and getting it. And then the other thing I would do is, I don't know, Fridays or Saturday nights or maybe Sundays in the late afternoon when the sun's setting and it's hot there in Washington, D.C., I would try to have somebody like, I don't know, Kid Rock or somebody like that come out there where they have that terrace out there and put up some big-ass speakers and sit out there in a rocking chair and watch these guys like Ron Bellum. You know, Ron Bellum's been on his show before. My buddies who play guitar or banjo, and just sit out there and have a barbecue and listen to some good music. That's what I do. Have it blasted out on the lawn out there by the Washington Monument. People can sit out there. You see, that's why you should elect me for president in 2020. I'd also paint my helicopter black. And when we took off, I'd turn all the lights off. I don't know. I'm just going off now. But I probably would change the protection of the president while I was in there from the Secret Service to the immediate group from the Secret Service. No offense there, people, but I have to go with my homies. I'd have to surround myself with other SEALs. Yes, that is true. All right, Comey. Everybody knows I love that guy to death. Not. And I think he's a criminal. But I thought this was really good. They're saying now that Congress is wanting to open up the investigation again on Hillary because they now realize, like it just came to them, that they didn't get it all because of what Comey's testimony showed them. So I'm going to play this and go through this before we go. And you're going to see, now that we know what we know about Comey, that he actually wrote this memo before Hillary was found not guilty in his eyes. And I think it's a perfect example of what's going on in this country. And listen, here's another thing, folks. Just in this past week, Anthony Weiner gets sentenced to 21 weeks in prison, or excuse me, 21 months in prison. He's going to be considered a sex offender when he gets out, which means he's going to be considered a pedophile sex offender when he goes in. And let me just tell you, what I know about prison, having been in law enforcement, they don't take too kindly for them kind up in there. And he is not going to have a good time. So Weiner, it's like a movie. Weiner goes to jail. Weiner is not going to have a good time up there. You have... I just forgot what the name is of the guy that's out in New Jersey that was the senator. If anybody remembers what his name is, he's on trial. It's looking terrible with millions and like something like $9 million worth of. I could be skewing those numbers, but it's millions of dollars worth of of fraud and all kinds of money issues. And Menendez, thank you, Kate. Menendez out there in New Jersey. This is just a small example of the corruption in Washington, D.C. All right, so anybody that says, well, you know, Hillary was great, well, you're obviously blind to what she was doing. Anybody that says James Comey never did anything wrong, you're obviously blind to what happens in Washington, D.C. and how these games are played. Read into this Menendez trial. It's crazy. All right, so let's go over here. Let's pull this up. Doop, doop, doo, doop, doo. And I got to plug this in here. I think that'll work.
Director, did you make the decision not to recommend criminal charges relating to classified information before or after Hillary Clinton was interviewed by the FBI on July the 2nd?
After.
Okay, then I'm going to need
we
your
now
help
know that's a
trying
lie.
to understand how that's possible. I think there's a lot of prosecutors or former prosecutors that are shaking our heads in how that could be the case. Because if there was ever any real possibility that Hillary Clinton might be charged for something that she admitted to on July the 2nd, why would two of the central witnesses in a potential prosecution against her be allowed to sit in the same room to hear the testimony? Now, I've heard your earlier answers today. You said that, well, it was because the interview was voluntary and they were her lawyers. But I think you're skirting the real issue there, Director. First of all, the fact that it was voluntary, it didn't have to be, right? You could have impaneled an investigative grand jury. She could have been subpoenaed. And I know you've said that you can't comment on that, and I don't really care about the decision about whether or not there should have been a grand jury here. But since you didn't have one, it goes to the issue at hand about whether or not this interview should have ever taken place. With due respect to the answers that you've given, the FBI and the Department of Justice absolutely control whether or not an interview is going to take place with other witnesses in the room, because the simple truth is, if under the circumstances as you've described, those interviews never take place. If there was ever any possibility that something Hillary Clinton might have said on July 2nd could have possibly resulted in criminal charges that might possibly resulted in a trial against her relating to this classified information, well then, to use your words, Director, I don't think that there's any reasonable prosecutor out there who would have allowed two immunized witnesses central to the prosecution to proving the case against her to sit in the room with the interview, the FBI interview of the subject of that investigation. And
now, do you understand what he's saying here? I'm going to break it down to you very easily. There were two people that were key witnesses in this case, and they were allowed, who had not been interviewed yet, and they were allowed to sit in the room with Hillary Clinton while she gave her testimony. I have never, ever heard of that happening ever before. And there's a lot of things in this case, whether it's the no-knock warrant where they picked the locks and went into Manafort's bedroom and woke him up as though he's going to flush computers and stuff down the toilet before they get to him. You know, absolute nonsense. Never heard of it before, and I've never heard of this. You do not proffer or investigate, whatever you want to call it, interview individuals, different people that are involved with a case in a room together. My Lord. There's no better way to get your story straight, I guess, than to do it that way. Crazy stuff, folks.
if I heard you earlier today, in your long career, I heard you say that you've never had that circumstance. Did I hear you correctly?
That's correct. But
okay, and I never have either, and I've never met a prosecutor that's ever had that. So, to me, the only way that an interview takes place with the two central witnesses and the subject of the investigation is if the decision has already been made that all three people in that room are not going to be charged.
Okay, can I respond?
Yes, please.
I know in our political life sometimes people casually accuse each other of being dishonest, but if colleagues of ours believe I am lying about when I made this decision, please urge them to
I'm one of your
contact me
colleagues.
privately so we can have
I'm
a
one of your
conversation
colleagues.
about
I think
this.
you're lying.
All I can do is tell you again, the decision was made after that because I didn't know what was going to happen in that interview. She maybe lied during the interview in a way we could prove. Let me finish. I would also urge you.
And he had already written the memo at this time. I'm one of your colleagues. You're a liar.
Tell me what tools we have as prosecutors and investigators to kick out of an interview someone that the subject says is their lawyer.
That's not my point. The interview never should have taken place if you were going to allow the central witnesses that you needed to prove the case to sit there and listen to the testimony that the subject was going to give. It never happens. It never happened to you, and it's never happened to me or any other prosecutor that I met. And I know you've defended the people that were involved in this as being great, but if it's never happened, I wonder why this is a case of first precedent with respect to that practice that you and I have never seen in our careers.
You and I don't control the universe of what's happened. I suspect it's very unusual. A key fact, though, that maybe is leading to some confusion here is we had already concluded we didn't have a prosecutable case against Heather Samuelson or Cheryl Mills at that point. If they
The key fact is this guy is a liar. Anyway.
Targets of our investigation, maybe we would have canceled the interview, but frankly, our focus was on the subject. The subject at that point was Hillary Clinton.
All right, let me move on. According to the FBI's own documents, Paul Gambetta was, in his first interview on February the 18th, told FBI agents that he had no knowledge about the preservation order for the Clinton emails, correct?
I don't know the dates of that, but I'm sure it's in the 302.
Okay, but then 2.5 months later, on May the 3rd, his second interview, he made a 180-degree turn. And he admitted that, in fact, he was aware of the preservation order, and he was aware of the fact that that meant that he shouldn't disturb the Clinton emails, correct?
Yep.
Okay, well then I need your help again here, because when I was at the Department of Justice, your reward for lying to federal agents was an 18 U.S.C. 1001 charge or potential obstruction of justice charge. It wasn't immunity.
Depends on where you're trying to go with the investigation. It's a low-level guy, and you're trying to move up in the chain, you might think about it differently.
What?
Or
you lied to an FBI.
if you just go up the chain and give everybody immunity because you're on their payroll, in a sense. That's what this is. Are you all clear on what's happening? Somebody that said one thing, turned around and said another. He lied to the FBI, and the DOJ ended up giving him immunity. And according to Criminal Comey, he was low-lying fruit. But I don't think there was any low-lying fruit from my standpoint of an investigator. There was no low-lying fruit on this tree. They were all guilty, and they all had massive amounts of information that could be used by investigators, but they just give them immunity, and then the people don't really testify about anything. That's very suspicious to me.
You don't think that's important?
Oh, it's very important. Happens all the time. Unfortunately, it's very, very important. Sometimes you prosecute that person and end their cooperation. Sometimes you try and sign them up.
But if they lie to an FBI agent after they're given immunity, they violated the terms of their immunity agreement.
Oh, sure, after the agreement.
And so that's my point. He shouldn't have immunity anymore.
Oh, I'm sorry, I may have misunderstood you. He lied to us before he came clean under the immunity agreement and admitted that he had deleted the emails.
No, not according to the FBI's documents. He had the immunity agreement in December of 2015. These interviews took place in February and March and May of this year, 2016.
Gambetta?
Gambetta.
Okay, then I'm confused and misremembering, but I don't think that's right.
Okay.
Well, it is right, and you all gave this guy immunity, and you didn't even realize that he lied after he had immunity, which should have nullified the entire deal. But here's the reality. He knows he's a liar. Just like everybody else in Washington, D.C., he's a liar. He knew what had happened. He knew that the guy lied because he's probably the one that told them to lie.
My time's expired, but I have one last question, and I think that's important. At this point, based on everything, do you think that any laws were broken by Hillary Clinton or her lawyers?
Do I think that any laws were broken?
Yeah.
I don't think there's evidence to establish that.
Okay. Well, I think you're making my point when you say there's no evidence to establish that. Maybe not in the way she handled classified information, but with respect to obstruction of justice. And you've got a pen here. I just want to make sure the record's clear about the evidence that you didn't have, that you can't use to prove. So this comes from the FBI's own report. It says that the FBI didn't have the Clintons' personal Apple server used for Hillary Clinton work emails. That was never located, so the FBI could never examine it. An Apple MacBook laptop and thumb drive that contained Hillary Clinton's email archives was lost, so the FBI never examined that. 2 BlackBerry devices, provided the FBI didn't have SIM cards or SD data cards. 13 Hillary Clinton personal mobile devices were lost, discarded, or destroyed with a hammer, so the FBI clearly didn't examine those. Various server backups were deleted over time, so the FBI didn't examine that. After the State Department and my colleague Mr. Gowdy here notified Ms. Clinton that her records would be sought by the Benghazi Committee, copies of her emails on the laptops of both of her lawyers, Cheryl Mills and Harold Mills, and Heather Samuelson, were wiped clean with bleach bits, so the FBI didn't review that. After those emails were subpoenaed, Hillary Clinton's email archive was also permanently deleted from the Platte River Network with bleach bit, so the FBI didn't review that. And also after the subpoena, backups of the Platte River server were manually deleted. Now, Director, hopefully that list is substantially accurate because it comes from your own documents. My question to you is this: any one of those in that very, very long list, to me, says obstruction of justice. Collectively, they scream obstruction of justice, and to ignore them, I think, really allows not just reasonable prosecutors, but reasonable people to believe that maybe the decision on this was made a long time ago not to prosecute Hillary Clinton. And with that, I yield back.
So, Ann Elizabeth asked me, she said, JTG, how many crimes does all that add up to? Well, I mean, I'd have to sit down with this, but I'll tell you, Rudy Giuliani put a lot of stuff together, or it was Rudy and it was also Judge Napolitano, and they came up with 30 or more different crimes that she had committed, and that Comey had committed as well, several of those same things. So I'm telling you, folks, it is bad in Washington, D.C. It's sick in Washington, D.C. There's one more story I was wanting to tell you about here. But I think that's good. I think we're good. We got the Mad Pooper story, right? Yeah, that's good. Now, I got to plug Sean Hannity's TV show tonight. They're going to re-air it here in a little bit. I would recommend that you record it if you can't stay up late. And thank you for staying with me during Sean's time tonight, because he interviewed tonight Bill O'Reilly. And I'm not going to go into detail about their relationship, but I will tell you this, that basically I haven't spoke for 30 years. I was shocked. So that in itself, I think, will be worth watching the Bill O'Reilly show. It doesn't matter if you're liberal or conservative. It's still pretty freaking interesting. Thank you, Kitty Kelly. Thank you very much. So why don't we do this? I'm going to go to the Truth Zone. And by the way, I'm going to have I'm going to have a buddy of mine eventually on here. I'm going to keep it a little secret who he is. But he is he's an Iraqi, I think, and Afghanistan war veteran, special forces that was wounded in an IED explosion. And so I'm going to get him on here to talk about his story eventually. I just saw a picture of him on Facebook, and I can't wait to finally get a hold of him. So, let's go to the Truth Zone, because I'm nervous now because Benjamin is watching the show. I'm not going to say your last name, Benjamin, because I can see you're on there. Other people can't. Make me nervous. I'm just kidding. So let's see here. Let's go to the Truth Zone. I'm sorry that there's so much of these comments going on that I've gotten to a point now where it's hard for me to keep up with all the chatter that's going on. And I know I went back and looked at some of the Twitter stuff last night when I couldn't sleep, and I ended up deleting or blocking a lot of people. So Hey, troll it up if you want. I'll just block you later. You don't bother me anyway. You're just a bunch of freaking knuckleheads. So anyway, let's go to the Truth Zone. Or do you want to hear me do more beatbox? Which one? I'll do just a little bit. Going into the commercial, I'll do some beatbox. That is going to be the thing that keeps me from ever being president right there. Okay, let's go to the trailer. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. I gotta get him. Come here, buddy. All right, you just sit right there. Nobody can see you over there. Hey, come over here. Sneeze it out. Get it out. All right, there you go. He coughs a little when I pick him up sometimes. Coughs right in my coffee. All right, sit up here. Say hello. All right, those of you who don't know, Rico is a 17-year-old Jack Russell. He is lean, mean. He's a fighting machine. He's not real fast anymore, but he still, when he walks, he puts his beret on, which he looks like that. I don't know why he does that. He's done it his whole life. Sorry, I didn't mean to slam your head into the microphone. But here's the thing. It's the Truth Zone, folks. It's Tuesday. I didn't sleep last night. I had a lot on my mind about what's going on in this country. And this is what I want to leave you with. This CQRF, the Constitutional Quick Reaction Force that I'm always talking about, right here. I made that up on a whim. By the way, I autographed that. I'm going to sit down and talk with him about these cups eventually. But hashtag CQRF, the Constitutional Quick Reaction Force. What is that? It is we the people. That's what it is. The Constitution Quick Reaction Force is just something that I came up with to show people that you can unite. That's what it's about. All this stuff that's going on with these subversive groups, with the Black Lives Matter and the Antifa groups and all these different groups. You want to get down, don't you? Here's the deal, folks. As I've always said, before you can pick up a weapon, you got to stand together. Before you stand together, you have to have dialogue. And before you have dialogue, you got to have a place for it. We're also spread out all over the country that it's almost impossible, as busy as we are on a daily basis in this country, to come together and do things together. We have so many diverse people, so many different backgrounds. We've been told so many lies. People have been convinced that they don't have to work, that the government will pay for everything. Instead of just saying, look, you're on hard times, we'll give you a hands up. We'll give you a handout, but then when you get better, when you find a job, or if you can't find a job, you go clean government buildings, whatever. They don't do that. It's called learned helplessness. And what they do is they convince people to forget about your pride, forget about your morals and your ethics. What they convince people to do is to take the handout and stay on the handout. Not because they love people, not because they want to take care of them. They do it because they want to enslave them. That's the truth. The Dell Juniors of the world, this weirdo from West Point, and all those girls that were holding up their fists at West Point, these people are slaves. All the people that are 20-something-year-olds that march with Antifa and get themselves killed, they're slaves. The parents that support their kids and don't ask what they're doing, they're slaves. People that pick a president or a congressman or senator based on a political party and not whether or not they're effective or not, they're slaves. Folks, this can only be solved if we do it together. I hope you're as emotional about this as I am. I hope it's grinded on the inside of you. We'll talk about it some more tomorrow on The Experts. I'm Jonathan Gill, and that's Rico. And the truth has arrived. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.